Hi everyone, welcome back. Happy Sunday. Hope you've had a good week. Please forgive my voice. I am sick, but I have some throat coat tea, so I think we'll be all right. Anyway, this week we are beginning the first book of Chronicles. If you've noticed in the past, months as we were reading through First and Second Kings, you'd often hear the phrase, "The rest of the acts of King David, Solomon, all of his accomplishments and actions are recorded in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel or Kings of Judah." That's what we're about to begin, the books of the Chronicles. So as an introduction, these are not my words, this is just what this Bible says of Chronicles. I think it's important to understand what books are. That's a big gap in my Sunday school experience, I think. We never really talked about what the books were. And how the Bible is broken up in the sections. So I think it's important we understand who's speaking and where they're coming from, and then what the scholars and such believe the about the book before we start reading it. So anyways, all right, without further ado, the first book of Chronicles. Originally, the two books of Chronicles formed, with the books of Ezra and Nehemiah, a single historical work, uniform in style and basic ideas. The Greek title Paralipomenia means things omitted or passed over, skipped, in the books of Samuel or the books of Kings. The books of Chronicles, however, are more than a supplement to Samuel and Kings. A comparison of the two histories discloses striking differences in the scope and purpose. The books of Chronicles record in some detail the lengthy span from the reign of Saul to the return from exile. Unlike the exact science of history today, wherein factual accuracy and impartiality of judgment are the standards for estimating what is of permanent worth, ancient biblical history, with rare exceptions, was less concerned with reporting in precise detail all the facts of a situation than with explaining the meaning of those facts. Such history was primarily interpretive, and, in the Old Testament, its purpose was to disclose the action of the living God in the affairs of men. For this reason, we speak of it as sacred history. Its writer's first concern was to bring out the divine or supernatural dimension in history. This is apparent when we examine the primary objective of the the writer in the Chronicles, in compiling his work. In view of the situation which confronted the Jewish people at the time, at the end of the 5th century BC, the chronicler realized that Israel's political greatness was a thing of the past. It would be a people under God, or nothing, yet Israel's past held the key to her future. The chronicler proposed to establish and defend the legitimate claims of the Davidic monarchy in Israel's history, and to underscore the place of Jerusalem and its divinely established temple worship as the center of religious life for the Jewish community of his day. If Judaism was to survive and prosper, it would have to heed the lessons of the past and devoutly serve Yahweh in the place where he had chosen to dwell, the Temple of Jerusalem. From the chronicler's point of view, David's reign was the ideal to which all subsequent rule in Judah must aspire. The chronicler was much more interested in David's religious and cultic influence than in his political power. There is little of royal messianism in his book. He apparently regarded as something of the distant past the prophet Zechariah's abortive attempt to have the Davidic kingdom reestablished in the time of Zerubbabel at the end of the 6th century BC. He saw David's primary importance as deriving from the establishment of Jerusalem and its temple as the center of the true worship of the Lord. Furthermore, he presented David as the one who had authorized the elaborate ritual, which, in point of fact, only gradually evolved in the temple built by Zerubbabel, and who had also appointed Levites to supervise the liturgical services there. There are good reasons for believing that originally the books of Ezra and Nehemiah formed the last part of a single literary work that began with 1 and 2 Chronicles. Some authors even regard Ezra himself as having been the anonymous chronicler. In any case, the chronicler's Hebrew as well as his religious and political outlook points to approximately 400 BC as the time of composition of this work. The chronicler used sources in writing his history. Besides the canonical books of Genesis, Exodus, Numbers, Joshua, and Ruth, and especially the books of Samuel and Kings, he cites the titles of many other works no longer existing. The books of the kings of Israel, or the books of the kings of Israel and Judah. the history of Samuel the seer, the history of Nathan the prophet, the history of Gad the seer, the commentary on the books of Kings, and some of the documents mentioned as historical sources. In addition, the chronicler's work contains early pre-exilic material not found in the Book of Kings. At one time, scholars discounted the value of this material, but modern research has shown that, even though the chronicler may have at times treated the material rather freely, he derived it from authentic and reliable sources. All right, so we're going to do some summarizing here, because a lot of the beginning is they're just genealogical tables. For instance, chapter 1 begins, from Adam to Abraham, Adam, Seth, Enosh, Kenan, Mahalalel, Jared, Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The descendants of Japheth were Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Mesha, and Tyrus. The descendants of Gomer were, and on and so forth. I will link, I'll put a link in the description to these chapters. You can just read them. It would just be me struggling with a lot of pronunciations. These are names we've already seen earlier on for the most part. I think the next section, verse 28, is from Abraham to Jacob. Then chapter 2 begins, those were the sons of Israel: Reuben, Simon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Dan, Joseph, Benjamin, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. And then the first section is the sons of Judah. And then it continues down. Chapter 3 begins, the following were the sons of David, who were born to him in Hebron: the firstborn Amnon by Ahinoam of Jezreel, the second Daniel by Abigail of Carmel, the third Absalom, son of Maacah, was the daughter of Talmai, king of Geshur, the fourth Adoniah, son of Haggith, the fifth, you get the idea. Chapter 4, the descendants of Judah were Perez, Hezron, Carmi, Hur, and Shobal. Reiah, son of Shobal, became the father of Jahath, and Jahath became the father of Ahumai, and so on and so forth, sons of Simeon. Chapter 5 is Reuben, begins with Reuben, the sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel. He was indeed the firstborn, but because he disgraced the couch of his father, his birthright was given to the sons of Joseph, son of Israel. Israel, remember, was Jacob, so that he is not listed in the family records according to birthright. Judah, in fact, became powerful among his brothers, so that the ruler came from him, though the birthright had been Joseph's. The sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel, Jacob, were Hanoch, Palu, Hezron, and Carmi. His son was Joel, who was the son of Shemaiah, whose son was Gog, whose son was Shimi. Continues on. Verse 11 begins, the sons of Gad, the Reubenites, and East Manasseh, we'll read verse 23. The numerous members of the half-tribe of Manasseh lived in the land of Bashan as far as the Baal Hermon, Senir, and Mount Hermon. The following were heads of their ancestral houses: Ephar, Ishi, Eliel, Azriel, Jeremiah, Hodaviah, and Jadiel, men who were warriors, famous men, and heads over their ancestral houses. However, they offended the God of their fathers by lusting after the gods of the natives of the land, whom God had cleared out of their way. Therefore the God of Israel incited against them the anger of Pul, king of Assyria, and of Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, who deported the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, and brought them to Hala harbor and Hara, and to the river Gozan, where they have remained to this day. So it's just that reminder that if you start worshiping other gods, there will be consequences to that. And then continue on chapter 6, the sons of Levi. The clans of the Gershonites begin verse 56. Chapter 7, the Issachar, the sons of Issachar were Tola, Pua, Jashub, and Shimron. 4, the sons of Tola were, continues on, Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, and Manasseh. And then Ephraim And then chapter 8 is Benjamin. And a lot of this is talking about, again, the son of, and then where they lived. There might be a little moment like where it was talking about what happened to those who worshipped other gods. It's pretty much straight genealogy. Again, I'll link these to you so you can look them up yourself. All right, chapter 9. Thus all Israel was inscribed in its family records, which are recorded in the book of the kings of Israel. That's one of the sources that we heard about in the introduction. Now Judah had been carried in captivity to Babylon because of its rebellion. The first to settle again in their cities and dwell there were certain lay Israelites, the priests, the Levites, and the temple slaves. In Jerusalem lived Judites and Benjaminites, also Ephraimites and Manassites. Among the Judites were Uthai, son of Ammihud, son of Omri, son of Imri, son of Bani, one of the descendants of Perez, son of Judah. Among the Shalonites were Asaiah, the firstborn, and his sons. Among the Zerahites were Jewel and 690 of their brethren. Among the Benjaminites were Salu, son of Meshullam, son of Hodaviah, son of Hasanua, Ibana, son of Jerome, Elah, son of Uzai, son of Mikri, Meshullam, son of Shephatiah, son of Ruel, son of Ibnahiah. Their kindred of various families were 956. All those named were heads of their ancestral houses. Among the priests were Jediah, Jehoriab, Jachin, Azariah, son of Hilkiah, son of Meshullam, son of Zadok, son of Merioth, son of Ahidub, the ruler of the house of God. Adiah, son of Jehoam, son of Pashur, son of Mahagiah, Masai, son of Adil, son of Jazerah, son of Meshullam, son of Meshilemath, son of Emer. Their brethren, heads of their ancestral houses, were 1,760 valiant for the work of the service of the house of God. Among the Levites were Shemaiah, son of Hasab, son of Azikram, son of Hasabiah, one of the descendants of Merari, Bakbakar, Haresh, Galal, Mattaniah, son of Micah, son of Zikri, a descendant of Asaph, Obadiah, son of Shemaiah, son of Galal, a descendant of Jeduthun, and Barakah, son of Asa, 2 pages here, son of Elkanah, whose family lived in the villages of the Netophites. The gatekeepers were Shalom, Aktub, Talman, Ahimam, and their brethren. Shalom was the chief. Previously they had stood guard at the king's gate on the east side. Now they became gatekeepers for the encampments of the Levites. Shalom, son of Kor, son of Abisaph, descendant of Korah, and his brethren of the same ancestral house of the Korites, had as their assigned task the guarding of the threshold of the tent, just as their fathers had guarded the entrance of the encampment of the Lord. Phinehas, son of Eleazar, had been their chief in times past. The Lord be with him. Zechariah, son of Meshullam, guarded the gate of the meeting tent. In all, those who were chosen for gatekeepers at the threshold were 212. They were inscribed in the family records of their villages. David and Samuel, the seer, had established them in their positions of trust. Thus they and their sons kept guard over the gates of the house of the Lord, the house which was then a tent. The gatekeepers were stationed at the 4 sides to the east, the west, and the north and the south. Their kinsmen who lived in their own villages took turns in assisting them for 7-day periods, while the 4 chief gatekeepers were on constant duty. These were the Levites, who also had charge of the chambers and the treasures of the house of God. At night they lodged about the house of God, for it was in their charge, and they had the duty of opening it each morning. Some of them had charge of the liturgical equipment, tallying it as it was brought in and taken out. Others were appointed to take care of the utensils and of all the sacred vessels, as well as the fine flour, the wine, the oil, the frankincense, and the spices. He was the son of priests, however, who mixed the spice ointments. Mattaliah, one of the Levites, the firstborn of Shalom, the Korite, was entrusted with preparing the cakes. Benaiah, the Kothalite, one of their brethren, was in charge of setting out the showbread each Sabbath. These were the chanters and the gatekeepers, family heads over the Levites. They stayed in the chambers when free of duty, for day and night they had to be ready for service. These were the Levitical family heads over their kindred chiefs who dwelt in Jerusalem. And that ends the first section of First Chronicles. Next begins, it's still in chapter 9, but verse 35 begins the genealogies of Saul, which is in the second section entitled The History of David. So we're going to start there next week to try to keep that all together. So yeah, it's a lot of just name, son of, son of, son of, son of, and it's easy to wonder, why is this included? Why did they take the time to write this down? Back when this was written, 5 BC, before Christ, or 5, the 5th century, so 500 BC, before Christ. To write, it wasn't as simple as grabbing, a notebook out of the desk drawer and, your favorite pen. It was a lot of hard work to write. The methods they had to use, it was expensive. So why take the time and effort to write all this down? I don't know. I wasn't there. I'm not God. God inspired the scriptures. But I imagine it has something to do with creating a complete picture of how we got to where we are now, how we got to Jesus, how the prophecies were fulfilled. We have to have a complete genealogy to David, and then from David to Jesus, to show that when the prophecy was that a Savior will come from his line, that we have the record of that. I'm sure there's more to it than that, but these kind of details, especially with the ones that are provable, or they'll find something that lines up with it in modern day, it can just be helpful to bring our minds, our intellect, in line with our gut, because it's in the science age, in the age of what's proven by science and such, it's really easy to forget that what we read in our Bibles, what we are told by them, is real, was real, did happen. So when we find archaeological evidence of something that's been in the Bible for as long as it's existed in its written form, and oral tradition before that, it just makes it's important to believe with our gut and trust the Lord with our gut. But I personally, at least, I won't speak for anybody else, whenever I read an article about something that seemingly, whether it proves it, but it lines up with something in the Old Testament, that to me, it brings everything in alignment with my head. The joke is, science is catching up with the Bible now. I think that's really fun to find those and to hear about that. So yeah, anyway, that's why I don't like to skip over big chunks, just because it's boring, but also I don't think it would be helpful for you or me to sit here and just struggle through all the names. So I do encourage you to read through it, and even if you don't retain it, that's okay, but to read it, to give it the honor that it deserves. If it's here, it's important. Nothing in the Bible is unimportant. It just serves a different purpose. So without further ado, I'll stop there. I am losing my voice. So let us go ahead and close, as we always do, with the Lord's Prayer. All right. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Amen. All right. I will see you next Sunday to begin the history of King David again, and I hope you have a great week. Bye-bye.